welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 273, Playing with Fire. The episode begins right at the end of the last one, where Ash and Harrison were just about to begin their battle to see who would advance to the semifinals of the Johto League Silver Conference, with Harrison having sent out his Kecleon, and Ash having sent out his Pikachu. Ash instantly looked in his Pokedex for information on Kecleon, realizing that even though Kecleon was a Pokemon from Hoenn that he had never seen before, the Pokedex would probably have information on it, since Kecleon had been sighted in Johto before. And sure enough, it did have information, as it informed him of Kecleon's ability to change its body color, because, Kecleon was based on a chameleon in the real world. Upon learning of Kecleon's abilities, Ash warned Pikachu to be careful, informing him of this camouflage ability. The referee then signaled that it was officially time for the battle to begin, as Brock stated his worry that Ash wouldn't be able to beat a Pokemon from Hoenn, since he didn't have much experience with it. As for Oak, he was just excited to see a Hoenn Pokemon in person, hoping that Ash would eventually meet others as well, so Ash could tell him about them. Ash's mom was too focused on taking pictures of Pikachu, stating that if Ash won this battle, then he would advance to the top 4, and that was all that she cared about. As the rest of the crowd, including Macy and Vincent, along with Gary, were watching, the battle then began, as sure enough, Kecleon used its camouflage ability to disappear, since it perfectly blended in with the grass field. Ash had definitely expected this, as not only did the Pokedex tell him that Kecleon could camouflage, he had seen Kecleon camouflage before in that one episode, and he just saw Kecleon camouflage a few seconds before the battle began. And Ash didn't panic when Kecleon camouflaged, as he realized that Kecleon wasn't entirely invisible, as it had a red stripe that didn't change color, so that made it somewhat visible. Ash tells Pikachu to head for the red zigzag as he does so, though Kecleon then hides even more, as it hides in some tall grass, blocking even the red stripe, or red zigzag rather, from view. After a bit of scouting though, Pikachu was able to locate the Kecleon, as he then went in for a quick attack towards it. However, Kecleon spots Pikachu and runs deeper into the grass, disappearing once again, causing Pikachu to lose sight of it. This also displeased Ash's mom, as she wanted to take a picture of the Kecleon, now knowing that it was rare from Hoenn, but now she couldn't, as it had disappeared, and she couldn't even take a picture of its zigzag. Pikachu looks around for Kecleon, but couldn't find him, but Ash reassured Pikachu that he could eventually, since Kecleon clearly hadn't moved, since no footsteps had been heard. This made Ash realize that he could just have Pikachu listen for Kecleon's footsteps, and then follow the sound of the footsteps to track down Kecleon. So he just had to wait for Kecleon to move. So Ash instructed Pikachu to stay put and use its good hearing to listen for Kecleon's movements and potential attacks. Pikachu obliges as he closes his eyes to focus intensely on any sound, and even though he didn't hear any footsteps, he heard the sound of grass rustling. So he went up closer to this grass, and eventually he did hear footsteps, and eventually managed to track down the source of the footsteps, being the Kecleon. Pikachu went to go use Quick Attack on it, only for the Kecleon to then stick out its tongue, still not revealing the rest of its body, as it licked Pikachu all the way across its body. Damn, kinky. But as a result, this paralyzes Pikachu, and he's knocked down. Since Kecleon then throws Pikachu with its tongue, and with Pikachu down, it takes the chance to camouflage again as it runs around. Pikachu heard the many footsteps and the grass rustling, but he couldn't do anything as he was too paralyzed, which essentially made him a confused little bitch, not able to do anything. Seeing how Pikachu still wasn't in good shape, Kecleon took the opportunity to use a Psybeam, and Pikachu tried his best to dodge it, but it hit him a little bit. Thankfully, this really close call with the Psybeam was enough to wake Pikachu up essentially and get it out of its little paralyzed state, so it was back in, ready for battle. So essentially, the Psybeam had backfired for Kecleon. Kecleon just goes to paralyze Pikachu again with another lick, leaving Pikachu to run away into the tall grass and hide inside. Oak and Ash's mom were concerned, as Kecleon then used its tongue like a fucking lawnmower to cut down all the tall grass, revealing Pikachu's hiding spot. Misty, who was also watching with Brock and her Politoed and Psyduck and Togepi, questioned how the fuck the Kecleon was able to do this, leading Brock to reveal that Kecleon essentially put his tongue into a spinning motion. Yeah, I don't know how the fuck Kecleon was able to spin that fast, but yeah, the grass was now cut down. Pikachu knew he was about to get caught, so he ran away from Kecleon, only to then grab Kecleon's tongue with his hand when Kecleon came up to him, and since Kecleon couldn't move with its tongue being restrained, Pikachu then used his tongue as an electrical wire as he used Thunderbolt on it, and when it went across the tongue, it shocked Kecleon entirely, making Kecleon faint, giving Ash the first win, which the referee officially declared. Harrison then recalls his Kecleon, as Misty, Brock, and Gary all congratulate Ash on that good strategy of getting Kecleon's tongue and using it as a wire. Ash and Pikachu high-fived each other, happy with their current success, when Harrison then sent out his second Pokemon, the Sneasel that he had recently caught, and the Sneasel that had led him to sweep his previous match. Pikachu starts off with a Thunderbolt, but Sneasel was too fast as it sped away, dodging it, and then it took out Pikachu in one hit with a Metal Claw. Misty was immensely shocked to see Pikachu lose that quickly, and was worried that Pikachu was okay, although Ash quickly ran up to the field to reclaim Pikachu and make sure he was okay. Pikachu looked like it needed a rest, although it appeared that it would be fine, so Ash just went over to Brock and Misty quickly and placed it on the bench with Togepi, with Politoed to watch over the both of them. Ash thanks Pikachu for its efforts, even though it lost, and Misty assures Ash that she would make sure to look after it, as Brock comforts Ash, stating that although he had lost Pikachu, he still had 5 other Pokemon to fight for him, and stated that if Ash ended up winning 2 battles in a row against Harrison's Kecleon and Sneasel, Ash would have just got overconfident anyways, so this loss was just a minor setback. Ash appreciated the help from his friends, as he then went back onto the field and sent out his Totodile as his second Pokemon. Totodile goes for a Water Gun first, but Sneasel was able to dodge, and it then charges forward, going in for a Metal Claw. However, Right as the Metal Claw was about to hit, Totodile intercepted it by using Bite on Sneasel's arm to stop the attack. And Totodile was pleased with himself for doing this, so he proceeded to dance happily, and since Sneasel's hand was in its mouth, when Totodile jumped up in happiness, this caused the Sneasel to go tumbling downwards. While Totodile continued to dance, it accidentally whacked Sneasel with a tail whap, and this was enough to send Sneasel flying and knock it out, meaning that Harrison was now down 2 Pokemon, as Totodile and Ash celebrated, with Totodile jumping up happily even more, and Misty and Brock, as well as Pikachu, Politoed, and Psyduck and Togepi cheering Ash on. Harrison then returns Sneasel, admitting that Ash was stronger than even he was expecting, and he then sends out his third Pokemon, Hypno. Misty and Brock knew that Hypno was a Psychic type, and they were concerned by this, as Psychic types were usually thought to be pretty strong, especially in terms of Kanto and Johto Pokemon. Totodile tries to go in for a scary face, but it has no effect on Hypno, as it just stares at Totodile, not flinching, since Hypno was used to intimidating other people, or other Pokemon, not being intimidated itself, and it then proceeded to intimidate Totodile by using hypnosis on it, using its pendulum to hypnotize Totodile, and taking control of it. Being in control of Totodile, he's able to put Totodile to sleep, and then he uses Psychic to lift Totodile up, and then throw him across the arena, knocking him out as he hits the ground, forcing Ash to recall Totodile. Ash then sends out his third Pokemon, Snorlax, although he's surprised to see that it was sleeping peacefully as soon as it came out of its Pokeball. This actually worked in Ash's favor, though, because now that Snorlax was already asleep, Hypnosis would be ineffective, since it couldn't access Snorlax's eyes, or try and put it to sleep either. Misty warned Ash from the stands, though, that even though Hypno couldn't use its hypnosis, it could still physically attack Snorlax, and Snorlax wouldn't be able to defend itself while it was sleeping. Luckily for Ash, Hypno didn't go for any physical attacks, but it actually went for something worse, being a Dream Eater attack, which was especially useful against Pokemon that were sleeping. Essentially, the move drained a sleeping Pokemon's energy that it was gaining while it was sleeping. Brock knew about the effects of Dream Eater, so he pointed it out to Misty, making them both worry that Snorlax would lose all of its energy before it could even wake up. However, the energy draining was such a slow process that Snorlax was able to feel every little bit of it, and it made him angry, forcing him to wake up, not wanting his energy to be taken, as it felt good to regain energy while he was sleeping. Snorlax was also mad because, as Brock explained, Dream Eater, as the name implied, not only drained sleeping Pokemon's energy, but it drained the energy so much that it prevented them from having dreams while they were sleeping, and Snorlax obviously had plenty of dreams because it slept for an extended period of time, so it was angry to have its dreams taken from it, which was one of the main reasons why it woke up, in a fit of rage. So mad that it used many Hyper Beams in a row, which was obviously enough to knock Hypno out, forcing Harrison to recall it, as Ash and Snorlax celebrated. With 3 of Harrison's Pokemon now being knocked out, the referee then declared that it was time for the 5-minute intermission, so that the trainers could recuperate. Harrison simply spent his intermission talking to his knocked out Hypno, congratulating it on doing a good job, though admitting that the rest of his Pokemon would have to make up for his Hypno, and he knew that they could do so. As for Ash during the intermission, he of course went to go talk to Brock, Misty, Pikachu, Politoed, Psyduck, and Togepi, as Brock, Misty, and Pikachu congratulated Ash on how good he was doing, and Gary also waved at Ash from the audience, showing that he was indeed cheering for Ash, like he promised. Ash then excitedly declared that he was going to beat Harrison no matter what, leading Brock and Misty to remind Ash that he had to remain focused and not get overconfident, reminding Ash that Harrison was no pushover. Ash reassured Brock and Misty that he was well aware the battle wouldn't be an easy one, but he just wanted to remain determined so that if Gary saw him, he wouldn't see that Ash was discouraged. He essentially wanted to make sure that he fought his best for Gary, since Gary had lost to him and had essentially changed his whole worldview because of the loss. So Ash wanted to basically honor Gary and win the match as thanks for him coming around. Meanwhile, just as Team Rocket had said last episode, they were going to expand their fake badge selling business, and they were doing so by building a way, way, way bigger shop as opposed to a concession stand with the help of some local Machamp. Team Rocket had put on hard hats to pretend that they were helping the Machamp build, but they weren't. They were just gratefully watching the construction unfold. James stated that even though he wasn't actually helping build, he was the main contributor to the build, since it was because of his excellent fake badge designs on his bottle caps that they were able to make the money to be able to build in the first place. Jessie countered that she was actually the main contributor for the build because it was because of her marketing strategies that Team Rocket were able to start the build. This led James and Jessie to get into an argument, although Meowth quickly told them to stop, reminding them that instead of fucking arguing, they should actually help with physically building, insisting that the Machamp probably couldn't build it all on its own. However, Jessie and James didn't want to help build, and they instead fantasized about what they could spend all of their profits on once they paid off all their debt to Delibird. Jessie suggested that they get a special gift for Giovanni, but James suggested that they simply reinvest the profits to buy actual real badges and then sell them for even more money. Although Jessie was against this idea because she liked the scamming part of their business. Anyways, back at the actual battle between Ash and Harrison, it was time for the next battle to begin. And as Gary cheered for Ash, Harrison sent out his Steelix as his 4th Pokemon, as Ash decided to substitute his Snorlax for now in exchange for Noctowl. Noctowl was worried that Steelix's hard body would crush his wings, so he instantly went in for a confusion. This confusion eventually caused Confuse Rays to fill the entire field, leading Steelix to get rid of these Confuse Rays by going for a Sandstorm and covering the entire field in a Sandstorm instead. This Sandstorm acts as a way to hide Steelix, allowing Steelix to use Dig to sneak underground, and then pop out from seemingly out of nowhere, hitting Noctowl. Even though Steelix was against Ash, Misty and Brock couldn't help but state how impressed they were with how fast Harrison's Steelix was, being able to sneak up to even Noctowl, although Brock realized that he probably shouldn't be glazing Ash's opponent too much, as he then cheered for Ash extra loudly, stating his hopes that Ash would win. Anyways, Noctowl was able to recover from the dig and go for a hypnosis, but Noctowl couldn't focus on Steelix to hypnotize it, as Steelix then hit Noctowl with an Iron Tail, sending it down from the sky and knocking it out, forcing Ash to recall it, and giving Harrison the win. Ash's mom was concerned about how Ash had just lost that, but Oak explained that Ash simply had to come up with a way to counter Harrison, as Harrison had come up with a new strategy, which was to relax and cool his mind, and that therefore made him not nervous to wait for Ash's Pokemon to attack, so he could simply counter their moves. With Ash now having 3 Pokemon left as well, he sent his Snorlax back out and immediately had it use Hyper Beam, but before the Hyper Beam could get off, Steelix dodged and then used Bind on it to wrap it up into its hard stones. While Snorlax was trapped, Steelix took the opportunity to use both a Crunch and a Screech. But Snorlax withstands these attacks due to it being bulky, and goes for an Ice Punch, which freezes Steelix's curled up body, forcing the Steelix to then get slippery as a result, which allows Snorlax to slip out of Steelix's grasp, and then use a Hyper Beam on the frozen Steelix to knock it out, forcing Harrison to recall it. Misty and Brock then commend Ash on his great strategy of using an Ice Punch, since Ice attacks were super effective against Steel-type Pokemon. Harrison admitted that he was impressed with Ash's strategy as well, and begged him to do something as cool in the next battle, as he then sent out his Houndoom as his second-to-last Pokemon. Snorlax instantly goes for a Hyper Beam, now just wanting to go back to sleep at this point, so it wanted to get the battle over with as soon as possible. However, Houndoom countered with a literal counter, which deflected the Hyper Beam back at Snorlax at twice its original power, which was enough to knock Snorlax out, forcing Ash to recall it. Brock was impressed that Harrison was able to get a Houndour, that new counter, as Harrison claimed that all of his Pokemon were special, which Brock agreed with, noting how he had 2 Pokemon from Hoenn, a Houndoom with fucking counter, a fucking Steelix, which was a Johto evolution of Snorlax, and he also had that fucking Sneasel as well, along with a Hypno. So yeah, all in all, a pretty stacked fucking team. Ash got a little nervous when he heard Harrison talk about how good his team was, leading Misty to comfort him, reminding Ash that he and Harrison were on equal ground, as they each had 2 Pokemon left, which made Ash more confident to battle, as he then sent out his second-last Pokemon, Bayleaf. Harrison, Misty, and Brock were immensely surprised by Ash's choice, as Bayleaf was weak to Houndoom due to Bayleaf being a grass type and Houndoom being a fire type. Despite Brock and Misty's doubts, they had hope that Ash had a plan to overcome the type disadvantage, and Oak did as well, suggesting that Ash probably had a trick under his sleeve. Though admitted that, knowing Ash, it was totally possible that he had just accidentally made a mistake and sent out Bayleaf when he had meant to send out another Pokemon, or he could have anticipated Harrison to not use his Houndoom and simply just chose Bayleaf because of that. Either way, Oak, Brock, and Misty hoped that Ash had a plan. It appeared that Ash didn't have a plan, as he literally just told Bayleaf to use a Grass-type move, Razor Leaf, on Houndoom, which Houndoom was obviously able to counter with a Flamethrower, leading Brock to yell at Ash to quit using Grass-type moves against a fucking Fire-type Pokemon. Ash assured Brock that everything was going as he had planned, as he then ordered Bayleaf to not use a Grass-type move, this time ordering a Headbutt. Houndoom caused the Headbutt to miss though, as he bit the leaf on Bayleaf's head. However, Bayleaf didn't let Houndoom sink its teeth into her leaf, as she then used Divine Whip to shut Houndoom's mouth shut, which would prevent Houndoom from using both Flamethrower and Bite, leading Misty, Brock, and Harrison, as well as Oak, to see what Ash's plan was. He had essentially used his Razor Leaf and Headbutt as distractions, so that Houndoom would think that the battle would be easy for him to counter, only for Bayleaf to then unleash its real plan once it was close up enough to Houndoom. Bayleaf then uses the vines attached to Houndoom's mouth to grab it and throw it to the ground, and then knocks it out using a Body Slam, giving Ash another win, forcing Harrison to have to call out his final Pokemon. As Harrison recalled his Houndoom and admitted to Ash that he hadn't battled like this in a long time, referring to how much he was being pushed, but stated that just like Ash, he was determined not to lose, so therefore he would send out his strongest Pokemon, his Blaziken, as he crossed his fingers, praying for Blaziken to do a good job, and sent Blaziken out. Oak was immensely surprised, but also pleased to see Blaziken, knowing that it came from the faraway Hoenn region, and he tells Ash's mom that because Blaziken was so rare, being from the Hoenn region, this would make the battle interesting to watch, and he was very excited to get some more data on Blaziken for the Hoenn Pokédex, which was coming soon. Brock instructed Ash to use his Pokédex on Blaziken to see if the updated Johto model had any information at all on Blaziken, due to it being spotted in Johto, though clarified that even without using the Pokédex, Brock could tell that it was a fire type, so that meant that Bayleaf was unfortunately going to have to fight another Pokemon that it was weak against, leading Brock to joke that Ash was going from battling one frying pan to another, with Bayleaf being the thing that was being burned in the frying pan, leading Ash to yell at Brock for this bad joke. The battle then began, but not before Ash used his Pokédex, as Brock requested, which reveals that Blaziken could use its long legs to make very high jumps, and also confirmed that Blaziken was a fire type. Bayleaf then started with Razor Leaf once again, because Ash just didn't know what to do at this point, and sure enough, Blaziken just kicked the leaves away, burning the leaves with its flaming foot. Ash was impressed by Blaziken's strength and speed, and warned his Bayleaf to be careful, assuring it that he would try and come up with a new strategy to beat Blaziken, as opposed to just firing at it willy-nilly, and eventually came up with the idea to keep Bayleaf away from Blaziken as much as possible, in hopes that Blaziken would tire itself out by using too many attacks. This doesn't work though, as when Ash ordered a vine whip so that Bayleaf could grapple onto the stadium and agilely basically run around it to try and force Blaziken to come after it and tire itself out, and Blaziken simply grabbed Bayleaf's vines and shocked Ash at its immense reflexes as it proceeded to reel in the vines, ironically bringing Bayleaf closer to it, which was the opposite of Ash's goal. Ash then ordered his Bayleaf to use Body Slam so that it could put a whole bunch of weight towards the ground, as Blaziken was using its strength to pull Bayleaf in, and that would hopefully cause Blaziken to go tumbling to the ground. Before Bayleaf could get the Body Slam off though, Blaziken had already reeled her in for the most part, so Bayleaf instead tried to use the Body Slam to free herself by trying to flip over and slam on the ground backwards. But since Bayleaf was so close up, Blaziken just used a Fire Punch, knocking Bayleaf out and forcing Ash to recall it, which made him worried since he was now down to his last Pokemon, but Misty and Brock assured Ash that Harrison was down to his last Pokemon as well, so now they were nearly even. Meanwhile, the crowd was going absolutely apeshit at the fact that both trainers were down to their last Pokemon, as that meant the battle was extremely intense. And among the crowd was, of course, Macy, who was impressed by Blaziken's strength, wanting one for herself because it was a fire type. Anyways, Ash then stated that although he knew that Harrison's Blaziken was extremely powerful, he too had a powerful fire type. The crowd got excited as they knew who Ash was referring to, as he sent out Charizard. Ash was excited for the final battle, although Harrison, on the other hand, was nervous, because even though he knew his Blaziken was strong and a high-level Pokemon, he knew that Ash's Charizard was a high-level and strong Pokemon as well, after watching it perform against Gary. The final battle then began, as Charizard used a Flamethrower, and Blaziken used Flamethrower as well, setting the attacks on a collision course to clash. And once they did, this caused a huge ball of fire. Who would win? Find out next time on Pokemon Ball Z.